When I posted that I'm hanging out with Pavel, a lot of people, fans of his, wrote to me asking if he does, in fact, privately live the disciplined, ascetic life he's known for. No alcohol, stoic mindset, strict diet and exercise, including a crazy amount of daily pull-ups and push-ups. No phone except to occasionally test Telegram features, and so on. Yes, he's 100% that guy, which made the experience of hanging out with him really inspiring to me. I'm grateful for it, and I'm grateful to now be able to call him a friend. This podcast conversation is in parts philosophical, about freedom, life, human nature, and the nature of government bureaucracies. And it is also in parts super technical, because to me, it is fascinating that Telegram has a relatively small engineering team and yet is able to basically out-innovate all of its competitors with an insane
was talking about it. All the late night shows were doing bits about it, and it was widely considered to be must-see television until a lot of people started to turn on it. Its reputation eventually shifted to being a show that's too convoluted, and the writers are just making shit up as they go along. Why is there a polar bear here? The island is hot. You know, things like that. And when the show ended in 2010, it didn't quite leave behind the impact that at one point it seemed destined to. Now, when most people talk about Lost, the popular opinion is that it was a really promising show that just went off the rails. That was the opinion that I adopted myself and just kind of accepted as fact because I was a kid when I watched it, and that's what kids do. And then recently, Amanda and I were looking for something to watch, so she put the pilot of Lost on as a joke. And then we watched the second episode and the third episode, and 2 months later, we'd watched the entire series, cried dozens of times, and now it's one of our favorite shows ever. We got the DVDs, I have this book, I bought
And with that, let's get started. There's a very rare condition out there. It's called locked-in syndrome. Less than 1,000 people in the United States have it at any given point. Most sufferers are victims of a stroke or a traumatic brain injury. And even though it's a very, very rare condition, it seems to be a big fear for a ton of people. I mean, maybe it's the nature of the condition. Maybe it's because of the natural human fear of not being able to communicate with one another. It's terrifying. And it's exactly how you picture it. Locked-in syndrome. You're awake. Your mind is flowing. It's going 1,000,000 miles an hour. If you're lucky, you can open your eyes and look around. See what's around you. But really only as much as you can move your pupils. That's it. When you try to talk, nothing moves. You can't push out the words. It's like when you're in a dream and you're trying to scream for help, but no words come out and you start getting so flustered and frustrated with yourself, but you wake up and you realize that's just a nightmare.
Call, Phil witnessed many things he now wishes he hadn't. He says he worked on the periphery of Diddy's now infamous sex parties known as freak-offs, although he knew them by another name.
They were referred to me as Wild King Nights. And what a Wild King Night was when him and a guest would go to a hotel room or be at his home, his bedroom, and they would have intimate gatherings. I would have to go and prep that hotel room, which consisted of baby oil, Astroglide, candles, incense, liquor, lights, tons of toiletries, drugs.
Phil wasn't in the room for the parties, but he didn't have to be. He knew exactly what went on behind closed doors because one of his jobs
take a breath, rather than take a beat, rather than not acting rashly, rather than using the resources available to him as the President of the United States to find out what the realities on the ground are. He just goes, "Code red, red team go!" Because he sees it on TV and acts impulsively. He sends out the National Guard the same way you or I might make a late-night ShamWow purchase. I saw it on TV. It was on TV. In reality, it's just a fucking rag. But at 3 a.m, it's magic.
Think
you don't know how
about
TV works if that's the case.
where she came from. She's a fucking Kardashian, okay? She's a giant Kardashian.
That's
I mean,
right.
That's what she is. Now, notice I'm saying she.
You're saying she. I would say
very politically correct.
Yeah, I'm not.
But the video where they circled her house and she was like moving in the shadows behind the drapes. Did you ever see that?
No.
Oh, it was wonderful. It was wonderful. It was like the first time she was revealing herself as this woman. So they're circling her house. She's this glorious house, and like looks like it's in Malibu or somewhere. Where they're circling the house, and it's in the hills with a helicopter, like filming. This is like fucking high production value shit.
Yeah.
This isn't just like, hey, we met with Caitlin at home. Caitlin, tell us your troubles. Like Kristen Beck, the former Navy SEAL,
Right.
who just sits down very reasonably and says, "This just feels better for me. This is who I am."
Right.
No. So there was like curtains and shadows, and it was mysterious, and then she starts talking like, "Well."
Episode right there. It's like George Costanza, like leave while you're ahead, get out while you're ahead. But now I guess we got to discuss the movie while we're burning alive because it's fucking 100 degrees in Mr. Plinkett's house.
Yeah.
Mike, what did you think of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
I reject your hypothesis. I also almost rejected your idea to go see this film. I was like, I love Quentin Tarantino movies, but this one's 2 hours and 40 minutes. And
Like all Tarantino films?
just like,
See, here's the thing.
But I'm so glad I did.
I see. I knew that would be the case. As I mentioned this on their last episode, how it feels like Tarantino is like the last real filmmaker. This is a big release movie. I think it was like number 2 at the box office. Not quite number 1, but still doing well. Every time a movie comes out, tons of people talk about them. They're about stuff. They have real performances. They don't just feel like.
We're finding out now that Comcast is saying that no, Hulu is worth $70 billion 2 years ago. I can only imagine what they're arguing it must be worth now. And so, what is 33% of that? Well, 33%
of 70 billion is $23 billion.
And again, let's say that is prior to the inflationary period we are in. Okay, that's from 2021. It's also prior to the increase in subscribers that Hulu has. Hulu is not in a weaker position; it's in a stronger position. So, what that means is that Disney came to the earnings report, and we all believed Disney is in a situation where, yeah, it's not good at Disney, but they can still get Hulu. It's going to be a stretch, but they can still come up with that $10 to $12 billion they need. Now what we're finding out is that number may be as high as $30 billion, and who knows, maybe it's even higher than that. This is almost